a retired executive director of Farm Progress from southern Minnesota. How are you, Will? Welcome to come to the show with us today.
I'm doing well, Cesar. Great to join you today.
Tell me about your experience in Farm Progress in your career. Could you tell our listeners about that?
Yeah, I can. I started at Farm Progress back in '96, actually officially as a paid staff member, senior editor of Farm Futures and technology editor for the state magazines. Before that, for a few years, I'd been freelancing for Farm Futures, producing a technology column at Farm Futures and doing some projects there in the early days. Before that, I'd been freelancing. I've been in agriculture for 43, it'll be 44 years in May. Even though I'm retired now from Farm Progress, I'm still keeping my hand in doing some projects and special things like that. The career was interesting because I started it, like I said, as a senior editor of Farm Futures and technology editor. And over time, got involved with a lot of different projects. And in 2004, I was named the editorial director for the group, which put all those magazines and their websites as my responsibility. The team at Farm Progress is the best agricultural journalist team in the country, the best people I've ever worked with, and I do miss them now that I'm retired and I don't hear from them every day. But the work that we did and they continue to do is to show on a very local level what's going on with agriculture. Agriculture is a national business with an incredibly local focus. I mean, Cesar, for your own garden farm, how the local conditions can be different for you than they might be for someone in Nebraska, or they might be for someone in Eastern Ohio, or even Florida. Well, Farm Progress is in a unique position to provide that local information and then layer on top of that important national information as well as technology developments and other things impacting agriculture as a whole. That's what we built over time. I mean, the publications at the company, Farm Progress, has had a great history. Prairie Farmer being the longest continually published magazine. You talk about what's going on with the brand and that. And my role there was to, I laugh about it. Sometimes I was a fireman putting out fires so editors could get their jobs done, and working with upper management and our owners. Over the time that I was there, we were owned by three companies, Rural Press. Well, actually, when I started, you won't believe this, when I started, we were owned by the Disney company, and they owned us for the about 8 months after I joined. They sold us to a company called Rural Press out of Australia, and it's now called Fairfax Media. It's all been merged, and that was a wonderful time working with the folks from Australia, keeping the magazines going and doing some different things and creating and recreating what's now become a much more established and an invigorated group of publications over the years. And then we were bought by Penton, and then now they're owned by Informa, which is a global company, over 9,000 employees around the world, some of the largest shows in the world, everything from the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show to the Farm Progress Show are all part of that family of shows. So it's a pretty big.
Didn't grow in the farm. Why did you choose the agricultural media?
I don't often talk about this, but no, I didn't grow up on a farm. I went to high school in Eastern Iowa and graduated from Iowa State University with a degree in journalism. In 1980, when I graduated from school, there was a pile of journalists, and I have some friends from Iowa State who became very established journalists in the trades, the daily papers, that kind of thing. For me, I was looking for a job at a paper, also looking for jobs everywhere, and I couldn't get anything. And then a really neat opportunity opened up for me at a newspaper called Agri-News in Rochester, Minnesota, published as part of Rural Post Bulletin down there. And I went to work there and not exactly sure what I'd gotten myself into, but I became a quick study. They wanted a writer, and then the agriculture came second, which is probably not the best thing in the world. But over the course of the time that I was there, I did a deep dive in agriculture, and I found out something. Farmers are the greatest people in the world to talk to. This is an amazing industry. And I got in at the right time because in the 80s, when I was in the early days of the 80s, learning about agriculture and the way agriculture had already started to change. I came in at a good time. Over the course of the next 40 years, agriculture has seen a significant change. And I kept my hand in it. I did work in agencies for a while. And then I ended up at Farm Industry News back in the late 80s. Then I did some freelance, but always writing for farmers and writing for agriculture. And I love the business and I stayed with it. And then, of course, I've got this thing about technology. And so I cover technology. And even today, not only do I cover technology, I speak about it to farm groups when possible about the changes of agriculture and what they may mean for their farms. But yeah, in the beginning, I was like just trying to get a job out of college. And the good news was I landed in the right place and I really enjoyed it. They're on the right course, and I'll take some credit for pushing them that way or being in that direction. But the team that's there now, with Mike Wilson heading up print and Eric Braun, who you talked to last week, and handing up the digital approach, the change of media is that more and more younger people, farmers and people in general, are getting their information in different ways. And Farm Progress is already filling that out, whether it's a podcast, whether it's digital publications or digital information, and yet they deliver a magazine to your mailbox so you can get down and sit down with it. And what I always like to say, and my value of magazines is I've never had the batteries die on a magazine. Just can't happen. So the nice thing about a magazine is you can take 2 or 3 copies with you in the cab of the combine or the tractor. And while you're going down the road with auto track or auto steering of some form and your end road turns, you can keep reading. You can keep up on what's going on. But they're really poised for the future, and there's a lot of excitement there about what's going on. Let's keep in mind that Farm Progress has the 2 largest outdoor farm shows in the country, and the Farm Progress Show is the premier event for fall launches and new equipment. The new Case IH 715 horsepower tractor, what a monster, was introduced at the Farm Progress Show. So those are the places that people go to find out what's new in agriculture and to touch it, see it, talk to people, and learn more about what's going on in the business. And that is a really important part for Farm Progress. And on top of the Farm Progress Show, just 2 weeks later, they do the Husker Harvest Days, which is a similar size show and incredibly focused not only on what's new in other parts of agriculture, but what's new in irrigation. It's the only fully irrigated farm show in the country. And so it's got great insight there and a lot heavier access to livestock information, beef, cattle, and things like that as well. So I think across the board, when you talk about the magazines, the digital presence, and then the farm shows.
Our listeners.
Well, first I'll tell you a quick story. I have a former colleague that we both went to college together. And when we got into agriculture, we used to joke about this. This person is very advanced and very involved in farm policy, and I'm more technology. So I always said, you cover the farm policy and I'll cover the technology, and I won't have to deal with it. You can't do that. You can't do that in agriculture that simply. My thoughts on the Farm Bill is they need to get their job done. And it's slowing things down. It's hard for farmers to make decisions when they don't know what the crop insurance bill is going to look like, what's going to happen with other kinds of support, what's going to happen with the conservation reserve and those things. And this indecision makes it difficult for all farmers to make decisions. So my thoughts on the Farm Bill is just get to work. With regard to trade, I'm a little concerned. Trade is up in the air again. There's some rumblings in China. Right now, there's some talk on the campaign trail of advanced tariffs. If a certain certain person wins the election, they're talking about big tariffs against China. Even that talk this early on can rile the markets. So I think that trade is going to be a bigger and bigger issue. And I think the current administration needs to focus on what that might mean in the Pacific Rim as well as Europe. And I'd like Europe to figure out some things on genetic engineering and biotech and things like that, because those trade things keep coming up in the conversations. But my first thoughts are, let's get the Farm Bill done, and on trade, let's keep our eyes open and keep our pedal to the metal in terms of getting stuff done on trade issues too. And there's a lot of distractions out there.
It's not good. I understand both ends.
Absolutely, it's not good at both ends.
My pleasure that you joined the show for today. Thanks. You're welcome to join the show anytime.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. You take care, man.
This is Willie Vogt from Southern Minnesota, from back roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. Have a great day.